All right, what's going on, everybody? It's Coach Zach. Welcome back to video number 2. And now we're going to be diving into each of the different sections of the temple. And so, again, just a reminder, this is a visual idea that kind of came to me. How do we create the temple that we desire? And I'm referring to our body, which is our temple here on earth. How do we build something that we're proud of, we feel good in, and that we are continuously working to improve and to be better? And this is something that I've been working on over the last decade as a fitness professional, working in the health and fitness industry. And to be honest, a lot of this stuff really came from my own need and desire to improve myself. I've struggled with tons of different addictions, and from first it was alcohol, heroin, drugs, and then it was food. And to this day, still struggle with a lot of those things. I mean, in terms of like food, and we live in a society and a culture that really kind of pushes all these unhealthy habits, and there's food everywhere. You cannot escape it. And so for me, I've really had to work on just how can I live in this world, in this society, in this culture, but also take care of myself in a lot of different ways. And again, I'm going to say this a lot because I think it's important, because I think we all experience this at some point, or maybe you are right now. But like for me, I went through a hard time with my life last year, and I really kind of everything that I thought I had going for me fell apart, and none of it worked. And so that really kind of left me wondering, okay, like why, as somebody who's been doing this for 10 years, why do I still struggle? It's like I see all these people on Instagram or Facebook, or all these people who seemingly have it simple, they do really well. And to be honest, I can't speak to those people if they really are, doing this and it's really easy for them. I can't speak to that, but I know for me and a lot of the people I work with, it's a constant struggle. And so it wasn't until recently that this kind of idea came to me. And it's really been, over the last 6 months to a year, I've been really trying to formulate something that's comprehensible and understandable for people. And so this is kind of an iteration of that. This is the most recent kind of vision that I've had in terms of like how I see the transformation and the, really what I use to continuously work to improve my temple, my body. And it all begins with this bottom piece, which is up here. It's IIT, which is our acronym, and this is our foundation to the temple. So number 1, I is going to be for information. So what that means is we have access to all the information you can ever want. We live in a culture where we have anything you can ever desire and dream of in terms of information at the tips of our finger. And so knowing the right information and the information that is most important to us when it comes to whatever our goal is. So again, we have so much information, it can be overwhelming. So we need to know what is the right information. How do we find out what the right information is for what our goals are, and get rid of all the other stuff that doesn't matter, right? And so that's the first part. You got to have the information, you got to have the right information, and you got to disregard the rest, because too much information is overwhelming. And I've been there, where I've had too much information and I focus on too many things and it's just overwhelming. Okay, so that's number 1. That's for the first I. The second I is, how do we actually implement this stuff into our lifestyle? Because we're all different. We all have different unique situations going on, but there is systems and processes that we can start to use and leverage that's going to help us to integrate this information into our lifestyle. And that is going to be the second piece of this is, it's not just about having information, but it's how do we implement this? And that's where the wisdom or the expertise of somebody who has been in a certain field or industry really comes into play and comes into be really handy, right? It's like, again, a tax person. So any of us can go on to TurboTax or whatever and probably do our taxes by ourselves, but we hire professionals as our lives get more complex, as we have more equities and investments and those kinds of things, and where it's just because like we could figure it out, but it's much easier just to hire somebody who has that expertise and knows how to implement that information much more efficiently than we do. Okay, so that's number 2. The last thing, which a lot of us don't like these days, because a lot of us are so used to instant gratification, is time. And I think that is so important. You got to realize it's taken you however old you are. Say you're 30 or 40-year-old, lady who just had a kid, and you've spent the last 20, 30 years of your life really kind of cementing these habits and routines and these rituals and eating habits. And if you think that you're going to change all of that in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months, or you're going to take some magical pill and that's going to change everything, you're just fooling yourself. It's not going to happen. The only time that I've really seen time get really kind of cut a lot is when somebody has a very impactful experience. And even then, there's still a lot of time involved into implementing some of these things, right? So if somebody has a heart attack or somebody has a major stroke or whatever, there's some kind of pivotal keystone thing that happens that really shifts and alters their life in a very immediate and kind of fast way. Like, that's the only kind of time I've ever seen that kind of happen. But for the most part, even then, it usually takes time, and you gotta understand that. You gotta be okay with that. And it doesn't mean you're not going to see good results or feel better or more happy or more content, quickly. It just means that it's going to take time to implement this, and you're going to have times that you're not perfect, that you fall short, that you don't meet your expectations, and you need to be okay with that. It might even be a month or 2 months that you don't feel perfect, or that you do what you need to be doing, but you need to be okay with that. All right, so those are the fundamental pieces, and you got to realize that. Like, knowing is the first part, and admitting that, okay, hey, like, this is the kind of stuff that I have to go through at the beginning is the first part. And so again, information, having the right information, getting rid of the rest, implementation, having support or an expert, or knowing how to use the information properly and leverage things to implement it into your life the most effective way possible, and understanding that you're not going to change overnight and it takes time. Okay? So that is the first part. That is our first kind of layer of our temple to our ideal lifestyle. And we are almost there. So we're going to jump into the middle portion here, which is really kind of a fun area where we kind of dive more into the information and implementation. It gets a little bit more into the nitty gritty of this stuff in here. Okay, so stay tuned for the next one. We'll jump into that.